Today I'm here with Professor Abhi Biswas from the Marketing Department at the University of Texas at Dallas. Thank you for taking the time to sit down with us, Professor Biswas.
Thank you, Alex. Glad I could be here.
Great. So before we talk about the MS in Marketing, and specifically today about the Consumer Behavior course, what the topics are, projects, things of that nature, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, Alex, so I've been teaching here for about 10 years, and then about 10 years prior to that at the Cox School at SMU. And before that, of course, I was at Purdue University as a Boilermaker, and in the interim as well as on and off, I've been doing some consulting, which nowadays has kind of been on the back burner, but I've done quite a bit of consulting in the last few years. And my background originally is into engineering, so
Right.
I feel that I can connect with some of the students, and we do have quite a few students who actually have moved from engineering to the School of Management or to the side of management. So that's kind of the background of from where I speak from in terms of my perspectives to these courses.
But a lot of the quantitative aspect is being bridged in marketing. It's a lot of both, and so that is a good skill set to bring.
That is true. There's quite a bit of blend between the quantitative and the fuzzy, wuzzy that people call the soft side, but really it's blending into this amorphous sort of a mixture of both quantity and quality, as they say.
Exactly. So today I wanted to talk about one of our core courses in the MS in Marketing program, which is Consumer Behavior, and which you teach. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the topics? But let's do this. Before we talk about the topics, perhaps talk a little bit about why we felt that Consumer Behavior is such an important course for anybody in marketing, be it product management or advertising or business development. Share your thoughts about why Consumer Behavior is such an overarching foundational course.
Now that is a really good question, because Consumer Behavior really is a core course or a required course in most top programs, and there's a reason for that. If you think about consumer behavior, it is the underpinnings to almost any marketing course, whether it's product management, product development, pricing, promotion, channels, retailing, distribution, sales. Almost everything comes down to understanding the consumer and the behavior of the consumer. So what I say in my class is that the very first thing we have to recognize is that almost everything that we do, each and every one of us as an individual consumer, is really being studied under a microscope by the marketers, and for good reason. For example, I tell my students, the first thing you do in the morning is what? I mean, let's say you brush your teeth. Do you use an electric toothbrush? Do you use just a regular toothbrush? Do you use the ones with the bristles that are actually sloping? Do you have the indicator toothbrush? If you go to the toilet paper users...
Oh, before you get the toothpaste, the mouthwash.
Everything. I mean, do you pull your toilet paper from the top or the bottom? Now, to you and me, that may seem like minutia and marketing trivia, but to Cottonelle and to Scott, that's a major issue, and that's a multi-million-dollar question where they pull from the top or the bottom. And by the way, 70% apparently in a poll said they pulled from the top, just in case you wanted to know whether you're in the minority or the majority in terms of bottom puller or top pullers.
Don't even know.
But that's an aside. Maybe it's from the Department of too much information. But this is the kind of thing that we talk about in terms of the importance of every single thing that we do is being examined by marketers, because they have to know how many cubes you put in your 12-ounce Coke. Coca-Cola's interested in that. Frito-Lay's wants to know whether you eat the broken chips first or the whole chips in a bowl of chips. To us, it may be unimportant, but every single marketing decision ultimately stems from and emanates from and is molded by the behavior of consumers. And that is the reason why we need to study the behavior of consumers from A to Z, all the way from before the decision even is taken to beyond even after the purchase is made.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating course and subject. So let's talk about some of the topics that are covered in the consumer behavior course.
Well, Alex, let's see. We cover, as I said, we try to cover the entire gamut, the entire spectrum of consumer behavior, which a lot of people mistakenly think begins with the purchase, or some think that it ends with the purchase. Actually, neither are true. It begins all the way from when the very germ of an idea of a decision or a purchase is even sparked in the minds of a consumer, or the twinkle in the eye of a consumer when they're thinking of going on a vacation. So we begin with way before purchase. We even begin with pre-purchase. So we talk about pre-purchase factors.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about the information search. We talk about the consumer decision process.
And that information search today with social media has just become just so huge, and there's just so much noise and clutter too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You're very perceptive, because what I was teaching 10 years ago, 5 years ago in the same course,
Mm-hmm.
is so different now, just because of the dynamic change and shift and the sea change that's happening in the search of information and how consumers search, and whether it's online searches, which are now gaining preponderance over, let's say, searching in print media. But these kinds of things are what we talk about. You know, what kind, in email marketing, what kind of email actually is more likely to get the information across to the consumer? What kind of heading or the header or the subject line? In other words, without getting into too much details, we go through every aspect that we can think of in terms of the information search, evaluation of alternatives, when you get it down to a few brands.
Compensatory, non-compensatory models.
Talk about exactly all the different types of compensatory models, non-compensatory models, lexicographic models, elimination by aspects. I mean, we try and cover at least the basics of the different types of consumer behavior models, the multi-fishbone models. So we talk about these models. Then we talk about the purchase. So we have lectures on the purchase process itself. Then we have a lecture on post-purchase, cognitive dissonance, consumer satisfaction, dissatisfaction, what's positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, what is quote-unquote punishment. And these are the different things that we talk about. And then we also have many other topics, all the way from demographic analysis of consumers, cohort analysis of consumer segments, how to get consumers to remember, how does a marketer get consumers to actually remember a brand name, brand awareness, brand recall. What are the best ways to have a domain name so that consumers actually will remember that? How is short-term memory, we study short-term memory, we study long-term memory. We talk about polychronic time and multitasking. So in other words, we go through the entire gamut of consumer behavior, and that's only the tip of the iceberg. We can never cover everything in a 3-credit course, but we do our best to cover most of the
all the basics, absolutely.
That's the goal.
So the other thing that we had talked previously about is some of the projects that students get involved with. Could you share some of those typical projects that they have to do?
Right, Alex. So what we have is, obviously, any course worth its salt should have group projects. So we really believe in getting our students to do group projects in a couple of different ways. One is we want to encourage them to not only do the project, but get up in front of the class and get some exposure to presenting, get them to present and to get them to own that presentation. So with that in mind, we have 5 or 6 different group projects, and during the project, students actually make very thorough, well-researched, well-documented, and thoroughly referenced presentations of topics. And these research topics would include anything along the lines of cross-cultural consumer behavior, what we call dyadic exchanges and influences, diffusion of innovation, perception management and framing,
Okay.
these are all interesting topics.
They are, absolutely.
Then ethics and regulations,
Okay.
and how they impact consumer behavior. So these are the different things that we, I've kind of given you a smattering or an idea
absolutely.
of 5 or 6 different topics.
Right.
And they make these presentations, they submit a written report. So that's one group project, and that really helps students to learn not only the things that I talk about in class, but also these 6 or 7 different well-researched and well-presented topics.
Right, right. We also talked about that, and I thought it was very interesting that you had some thoughts about how this course was particularly useful for, of course, domestic, but also for international students. Why don't you share some of your thoughts on that?
In fact, I think that's one of the more undervalued part of a course like this, or a course like advertising, because it's not just the takeaways from the course. I mean, consumer behavior essentially is a psychosocial course which draws upon various, it's a cross-disciplinary course. So there's sociology, there's socio-anthropology, there's psychology, there's mathematics, there's statistics, there's advertising, there's brand management, there's market research, there's everything in consumer behavior. So I think one of the great takeaways from this course, beyond just what's in the textbooks and what's in the PowerPoints and what's in the presentations, is that hidden gem, that intangible value of acculturation. I tell my international students, you're not only going to get your fingers into a number of different disciplines within this course, but by the end of the course, you're going to actually learn a lot about pop culture, about the media in the U.S.
Right.
You're going to learn a lot about this culture and the subcultures. And it will actually go a long way in telling you how to blend into this culture, to learn the dynamics of this country. And by the way, this might be a lot of value to some of the domestic students as well, and that might actually prepare them better for interviews, for job search, and even just fitting into life, as it were. And that's one of the powerful takeaways, I think, from this consumer behavior course. And I don't say this just from my own anecdotal opinion point of view, but I hear from students 5 years, 6 years later who say that, we not just learned consumer behavior, but we also learned a lot about this culture. And I think that's kind of an additional gravy, if you will, that goes with this course.
It is, and it is in fact an interesting sidebar that is something we sometimes don't think about. So I wanted to thank you very much for taking this time today, Abhi, and especially for the energy, the excitement that you bring to your courses. They're always very popular courses, so we're very, very happy that you're involved with our program.
Thank you very much, and like I said, it's all that energy and all that excitement really comes from the students, and they really are what this is all about. Thank you.
Thank you.